siren screamed, a blade of sound carving through the city's slumber. A VIP was en route, their life hanging by a thread.
Trauma alert, incoming.
Vitals are
Inside the
crashing. We need
emergency
airway
bay,
management now.
chaos reigned. Nurses
Prep
and
OR2,
doctors
let's move.
moved in a frantic ballet, their voices sharp with urgency and fear. A life was slipping away. Dr. Alan Cade stormed through the double doors, a bastion of calm in the swirling storm of panic. His presence commanded immediate attention. "Report," he barked, his eyes already scanning the blood-soaked gurney, assessing the damage with a practiced, detached gaze that missed nothing. Multipogizisus, torso, massive internal hemorrhaging. He's hypotensive and barely conscious. "Doctor," a resident stammered, fighting to keep up. Alan saw their failing efforts, the desperate looks. He took control instantly. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his command. "Prep OR3 for an emergency exploratory laparotomy. Get him on a fluid warmer and start massive transfusion protocol now." His orders were steel, cutting through the noise. The team snapped into action, a well-oiled machine ignited by its master's will. They raced down the sterile white corridor, the gurney's wheels a frantic shriek against the polished linoleum. Every second was an enemy. The rhythmic squeak of the ventilator bag was a fragile counterpoint to the cacophony of alarms and shouting. It was a sound of failing hope. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, strobing across the patient's pale, sweat-slicked face, a life measured in hallways and hurried breaths. Pressure is still dropping. He's going into shock, a nurse yelled, her hands working furiously to adjust an IV drip. Alan ran alongside the gurney, his mind a whirlwind of surgical strategy, already performing the operation a dozen times in his head. They burst into the operating theater, a cold, sterile sanctuary of steel and light. The air was thick with the scent of antiseptic. "Get him on the table. Anesthesia. Are you ready for induction?" Alan's voice was a low growl of pure, focused intensity. The team moved with practiced efficiency, transferring the broken body from the gurney to the operating table with practiced, gentle haste. Monitors were connected with a flurry of clicks and snaps. The patient's vitals painted a grim, flickering picture on the screens above. The heart monitor beeped a weak, thready rhythm. It was the sound of a life clinging desperately to the edge of oblivion. Alan turned toward the scrub sink, his face a mask of grim determination. This was his battlefield. He was the only line of defense. He thrust his hands under the scalding water, the methodical ritual of scrubbing a familiar anchor in the violent sea of the moment. The stiff bristles of the brush scraped against his skin, raw and repetitive. He was washing away the world, leaving only the surgeon. Behind him, the anesthesiologist's voice was a steady drone, reciting numbers and drug dosages, a litany against the encroaching darkness. "Patient is intubated. Vitals are stabilizing for now, but he's on a knife's edge," the voice announced over the intercom. Alan dried his hands, his movements sharp, economical. A nurse stood ready with his gown and gloves, her eyes wide with anticipation. He slipped into the sterile blue gown, tying it with a sharp tug. It was his armor, the final barrier between life and death. A gloved hand offered him another. He pushed his fingers in, the latex snapping crisply around his wrist. He was ready for war. He approached the table. The brilliant surgical lights bleached all color from the room, focusing on the single, desperate task ahead. The patient lay before him, a canvas of impending death. A network of tubes and wires tethered him to the machines that kept him alive. Alan took a deep, steadying breath, the recycled air tasting of ozone and fear. He held out his hand without looking away from his target. "Scalpel," he said. The single word was a declaration, a promise. The instrument was placed firmly into his waiting palm. The polished steel felt cold and familiar, an extension of his own will. It was a tool of creation, of restoration, of life. He surveyed the abdomen, mapping the course of the bullets, visualizing the shredded organs and pooling blood that lay hidden beneath the skin. The team stood silent, poised for action. Every person in the room was an extension of his hands, his eyes, his mind. The only sound was the fragile beep of the monitor and the quiet hum of the machines. A symphony of fragile existence. "We need to get in there fast. The bleeding is diffuse. I need a clear field," he announced, his voice tight with concentration. He positioned the scalpel over the patient's sternum, the tip hovering just a millimeter above the skin. The moment stretched into an eternity. "His shirt is in the way. We need to clear it completely," he ordered, his gaze never wavering from the point of incision. A nurse moved forward with a pair of trauma shears, the metal blades glinting under the intense lights of the operating theater. She inserted the tip under the collar of the blood-soaked fabric, preparing to cut it away from the patient's chest and abdomen. The sound of the shears slicing through the cloth was loud in the tense silence, a harsh, ripping noise that set his teeth on edge. The fabric parted, revealing the pale, bruised skin of the chest beneath. Alan prepared to make his first life-saving cut. He readjusted his grip on the scalpel, his muscles tensed for the precise, controlled movement that would begin the desperate fight for life. But then something caught his eye, a patch of dark ink on the skin, just over the patient's heart. He paused. The nurse continued to cut, pulling the ruined shirt away. The image became clearer, more defined. It was a tattoo, not just any tattoo. It was a serpent, a cobra, coiled and ready to strike. Its hood flared in aggression. Its scales were rendered in deep obsidian black, and its eyes, they were a piercing, malevolent blood red. He knew those eyes. Dr. Alan Cade froze. The world stopped. The sterile, controlled environment of the operating room simply ceased to exist around him. A sudden, violent chill shot down his spine, cold as the steel he held in his hand. It couldn't be. Not here. Not him. The scalpel felt impossibly heavy, its weight anchoring him to a moment he thought he had escaped, a past he had buried deep. His breath hitched in his throat. The face on the table was a stranger, but the symbol branded on his flesh was an old, hated enemy. The cobra seemed to writhe on the man's chest, mocking him from across a chasm of years, an unspeakable, searing pain. The rhythmic beeping of the monitor changed. It became faster, more erratic, a frantic, panicked staccato that shattered the silence. The anesthesiologist's voice cut through the haze. "Doctor, his pressure is crashing. Tachycardia. He's going into VFib." The steady beep dissolved into a single, high-pitched, continuous scream. The flatline? A sound of absolute finality. "We're losing him," a nurse shrieked, her voice cracking with sheer panic. "Doctor, do something! We need you now!" But Alan couldn't move. His feet were lead. His eyes were locked on the venomous red eyes of the tattooed serpent. His hand began to tremble, a slight, almost imperceptible tremor at first, then a violent, uncontrollable shaking that rattled the scalpel. The oath: first, do no harm. Save the life before you. It was the creed he had lived by, the core of his very being. But this was not just a patient. This was a ghost, a monster wearing a human face. The man who had taken everything. The team was shouting now, their words a meaningless jumble of sound. He heard them as if from a great distance. Get the paddles. Charge to 200. Someone yelled. The room was a blur of frantic, desperate motion around his stillness. He could feel the eyes of his team on him, could feel their confusion turning to horror. Their hero was frozen, paralyzed. The scalpel in his hand no longer felt like a tool to heal. It felt like a weapon, a tool for vengeance. The red eyes of the cobra burned into his soul, igniting a rage he thought he had long since extinguished. A cold, black fire. He saw a different face on the table. He saw the face of the man who had destroyed his world, laughing in the sunlight. "Doctor, please." The nurse's plea was a raw, desperate cry. "He's dying. You have to help him. You have to save him. Save him." The words echoed in the silent, screaming cavern of his mind. How could he save the man who had ruined him? The smell of ozone filled the air as the defibrillator charged, a high-pitched whine that drilled directly into his fractured consciousness. Clear. The shout was automatic. The body on the table convulsed violently as the electricity surged through it, a grotesque dance. The monitor blipped once, twice, a flicker of a rhythm. Then it returned to the horrifying, unbroken line of death. No response. Charge again. 300 joules. The anesthesiologist's voice was strained, cracking under the unbearable weight of failure. Alan's knuckles were bone white where he gripped the scalpel. His entire arm was shaking. He was losing control. The Hippocratic oath was a distant whisper, drowned out by a roaring torrent of memory, of loss, of pure, undiluted hatred. He looked from the cobra to the flat line on the monitor. One represented the cause of his pain, the other its potential end. Clear. Another jolt, another violent spasm. Still nothing. The man was gone. The machine screamed his obituary into the cold air. He had the power to bring him back. A few precise cuts, a few skilled maneuvers. He could pull this man from death's door. But did he want to? Did this man deserve the gift of life? The second chance Alan himself had been denied. The faces of his team were masks of disbelief and fear. They were watching their leader, their rock, crumble into dust before their eyes. The scalpel trembled, its sharp edge catching the light. It was a razor's edge, a dividing line between the surgeon and the man, between the oath he swore to uphold and the vengeance his broken heart so desperately craved. The choice was tearing him apart. The room began to spin, the bright lights merging into a blinding vortex that threatened to swallow him whole. He couldn't breathe. The incessant well of the monitor was the only thing that was real. It was the sound of his own personal hell made manifest. His mind fractured under the strain, the sterile white of the OR, dissolving like sugar in water, replaced by something else. He saw flashes, a child's laughter, the warmth of a woman's hand in his, a perfect summer afternoon shattered into a million pieces. The cobra tattoo was the key that unlocked the door to that nightmare, and now the demons were pouring out, devouring him. "Dr. Cade, Alan." The voice was a ghost, calling to him from a world he no longer inhabited. It had no meaning. The cold steel of the scalpel was the only thing tethering him to the present. But even that was slipping from his grasp. He let his eyes close, shutting out the chaos, the panic, the accusing stares of his team. He retreated inward. He let the memory swash over him, not fighting them anymore. He let the pain consume him, surrender to its terrible power. The screaming monitor faded away. The smell of antiseptic was replaced by the scent of freshly cut grass and summer blossoms. The cold of the operating room gave way to a gentle, enveloping warmth, the warmth of a sun he hadn't truly felt in years. He could feel a gentle breeze on his face. He could hear the distant, happy shouts of children playing in the distance. The weight of the scalpel disappeared from his hand. The crushing responsibility of a man's life vanished with it. He was no longer Dr. Alan Kidd, the celebrated surgeon, the hero of the ER. He was just Alan, a husband, a father. He was whole again for one fleeting, impossible moment. The gaping wound in his soul was miraculously, blissfully healed over. The past became the present. The present became a dream. The line between what was and what is blurred into nothing. The operating room, the dying patient, the screaming alarms, all of it was just a bad dream from which he was finally waking. His mind split in two, one half anchored in the cold, sterile reality of death, the other lost in a vibrant, sun-drenched memory. He wasn't in an operating room, surrounded by the cacophony of failing life. He was somewhere else entirely, somewhere peaceful. He was in a sunlit park, a checkered blanket spread on the grass. It was 3 years ago, the day before memory hit him like a physical blow, a ghost of sunlight against the sterile lower lights. He was in the park. The sun was warm on his face, a perfect Sunday afternoon that felt like it would last forever. A lifetime ago, Emily was on the swings, her small legs kicking with joyous effort, trying to touch the sky with her worn-out sneakers. Her laughter was the only sound that mattered in the universe, a melody of pure, unadulterated happiness that echoed in his soul. "Higher, Daddy? Push me higher," she had squealed, her pigtails flying behind her like tiny brown wings. He obliged. Of course, his hands, the same hands that now held a scalpel, were gentle as they pushed the small of her back. Each push sent her soaring, a little closer to the clouds. Her delight was his own, magnified 1,000 times over. He saw the world through her eyes then, a place of endless wonder, where swings could become spaceships and dandelions were magic. They left the swings and walked toward the pond. Her small, trusting hand nestled perfectly inside his much larger one. She pointed at the ducks. Her eyes wide with excitement, they glided across the water, leaving V-shaped trails behind them. He had brought a small bag of bread crusts, just for this. It was their ritual, their special Sunday appointment. She tossed the bread with clumsy, adorable throws, giggling every time a duck snatched a piece from the water's surface. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the grass. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves in the great oak trees above. It was a perfect, ordinary moment. The kind of moment you don't realize is precious until it's just a memory. Later, they sat on a bench, sharing a strawberry ice cream cone that dripped pink rivers down her chin and fingers. He wiped her face with a napkin, a simple act of fatherly care that now felt like a sacred, lost right. She told him about her day at school, about her friends, and about a drawing she made of a unicorn for him. He listened to every word, cherishing the sound of her voice, the way she pronounced spaghetti as paschetti. Her eyes, so full of life and trust, looked up at him. They were the same warm brown as his own. In that moment, he was not a surgeon, not Dr. Allen. He was just Daddy, the protector of this small, perfect world. He felt an overwhelming wave of love for her, so powerful it was a physical ache in his chest. A good ache. He promised himself he would always keep her safe, always protect that innocent, brilliant light from the world's darkness. It was a foolish, naive promise made by a man who had not yet met true evil, a promise he had failed to keep. The memory was so vivid, he could almost smell the cut grass and the sweet scent of the ice cream. He could feel the phantom weight of her head as she leaned against his arm, tired from the day's adventures. "I love you, Daddy," she had whispered, her voice sleepy, a simple, profound truth that anchored his entire existence. "I love you more, my little star," he had replied, kissing the top of her head. It was their familiar refrain. The sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. A beautiful end to a beautiful day. He carried her to the car as she drifted to sleep, her small body limp and trusting in his arms. That perfect day, that perfect stolen memory, the last one he had of her alive and happy. The beginning of the end. The idyllic park scene fractured, shattering like glass. The warmth vanished, replaced by an invasive, sterile cold. The hospital. He was finishing a grueling 14-hour shift. His body ached with fatigue, his mind numb from concentration and stress. His phone rang. An unfamiliar number. He almost ignored it, wanting only to go home to his daughter, his Hayao life. But something made him answer. A cold premonition that slithered up his spine. He put the receiver to his ear. The voice on the other end was calm, professional, and utterly devoid of emotion. A police detective, a name he'd never forget. "Dr. Allen, there's been an incident involving your daughter, Emily. You need to come to the Eastside Park." The words didn't register at first. Incident? Emily was with her babysitter. Safe. This had to be a mistake. His heart began to hammer against his ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. The fatigue evaporated, replaced by pure, liquid adrenaline. He didn't remember the drive. It was a blur of red lights that weren't red enough and green lights that weren't long enough. The world outside his car was a smear of colors and shapes. His focus narrowed to a single, terrifying point. Then he saw them, the flashing lights, the strobing red and blue that painted the familiar trees in nightmarish colors. He saw the yellow tape, a garish artificial barrier stretched between the oaks where they had played just days before. A uniformed officer stopped him, his face a mask of practiced pity. "Sir, you can't go past this point." "That's my daughter," Allen choked out, the words feeling alien in his mouth. He pushed past, his mind screaming denial. The scene was a chaotic tableau of grim-faced officials. The air was thick with a silence that was louder than any scream. He saw the detective, a tired-looking man with weary eyes, who approached him slowly as if he were a wild animal. "Dr. Allen, I'm so sorry," the detective began. And in that moment, Allen's world tilted on its axis and fell apart. His eyes scanned the cordoned-off area, desperately searching for anything, for a sign this was all a terrible dream. He saw something small and red on the ground near the swings, a little plastic beret, the one she always wore. He had bought it for her last week. It had a ladybug on it. She loved ladybugs. She said they were for good luck. The air left his lungs in a ragged gasp, a sound of pure agony. The denial was crumbling, leaving raw pain behind. He didn't need to see her. He didn't want to see her. He knew. The cold, final certainty settled in his bones. The world dissolved into a meaningless haze. The voices of the officers were a distant, buzzing drum. Time had stopped. He remembered falling to his knees on the cold, damp grass. The same grass where she had run and played. The protector had failed. The father had failed. The man had failed. His promise was broken into a million irreparable pieces. The darkness he had sworn to keep at bay hadn't just touched her. It had swallowed her whole, and him with her. He saw the paramedics, their movements somber. They were zipping a bag, a small bag, too small. His world ended. The pain was a physical entity, a monster with claws that ripped through his chest and hollowed out his soul. He didn't cry. The grief was too vast, too profound for tears. It was a silent, internal scream that would never end. The detective's hand on his shoulder was a distant, meaningless pressure. Comfort was an insult. Sympathy was a lie. They told him it was a monster in a fast car who hadn't even bothered to stop, a ghost. But later, the details changed. It wasn't an accident. It was something worse, something unspeakable, something deliberate. The investigation dragged on. Weeks turned into months of agonizing emptiness. Each day a new shade of hell, then a break. A witness, a description of a man in a car. An arrest was made. A name was given. A wealthy, untouchable man with a team of high-priced lawyers. The monster now had a face. A smug, arrogant face. The memory shifted again. The cold of the park replaced by the polished wood and stale air of a courtroom. He sat in the front row every day. A stone statue carved from grief and fury. He watched the man who killed his daughter. The VIP sat at the defendant's table, looking bored. He wore a different, expensive suit each day, tailored to perfection. He never looked at Alan. He fiddled with his cufflinks, whispered to his lawyers, and exuded an aura of untouchable arrogance. Alan watched the legal machine grind on. Evidence was presented, then dissected and dismissed by the defense team as circumstantial. The witness was discredited on the stand, their story twisted into a confusing mess of doubt and uncertainty by a sharp-tongued lawyer. Justice, Alan learned, was not about truth. It was a game of procedure, rhetoric, and money. He had none. The killer had everything. He felt a helplessness that was even more profound than his grief. He was watching his daughter be murdered all over again. The prosecutor was competent but outmatched, a public servant fighting a private army of legal mercenaries. It was never a fair fight. The days blurred into a monotonous cycle of hope and despair, each sunrise bringing him back to this cold, passionless room. He stared at the back of the killer's head, willing him to turn around, to show some flicker of remorse. There was nothing. The man was a void, a black hole of entitlement and cruelty that had consumed his daughter's life for no reason at all. The trial concluded. The jury filed out, their faces unreadable masks. The waiting was a special kind of torture. Alan held his breath, a single, desperate prayer echoing in the ruins of his soul. Please, let there be some justice. The jury returned. Their steps were heavy on the worn carpet. The foreman handed a piece of paper to the bailiff. The judge read the verdict, his voice a dispassionate drone that sealed Alan's fate. On the charge of murder. ... A pause stretched into an eternity. The entire courtroom was silent, suspended in that single, agonizing moment of anticipation. ... We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. The words were hammers, shattering the last of Alan's fragile hope. A gasp went through the gallery. The killer's lawyers clapped him on the back, smiling their predatory, victorious smiles. The VIP himself showed no emotion. He simply straightened his tie. Alan couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. The world had gone silent. The judge's voice, a distant echo. The system had failed. The law, the entire structure of society he had believed in, was a lie. There was no justice for Emily. Not here. The killer stood up. He adjusted his jacket, preparing to walk free, to return to his life of privilege and power. As he walked past the prosecutor's table on his way out of the courtroom, his eyes met Alan's for the first time. For a fleeting second, the mask of indifference slipped. The VIP's lips curled into the slightest of smirks. It was a look of pure, unadulterated contempt, a look of triumph. A final, silent insult spat on his daughter's grave. In that smirk, Alan saw the truth. The man was guilty. He knew it, and he knew he had gotten away with it. A cold, hard certainty settled in Alan's heart. If the world would not provide justice, then he would have to find another way. Vengeance was a foreign concept to him before that moment. Now, it was the only thing that made sense. A new, dark purpose. The judge banged his gavel, calling for order in a murmuring courtroom. The sound was sharp, final, a door slamming shut. The sharp crack of wood on wood echoed in his memory. It was the sound of his old life ending for good. The sound of the gavel. Crack, a world without justice. Crack, a father's promise broken. Crack, a new promise made. The sharp, percussive sound began to change, its rhythm becoming faster, more insistent, more metallic, more urgent. The wooden crack of the gavel morphed, twisted, and sharpened in his mind, pulling him out of the abyss of the past. The gavel's echo sharpens, morphs, becoming a piercing, desperate wail. Beep. Beep. Alan is back in the OR. The sterile cold snaps him to attention. The heart monitor is a solid green line. Flat line. He's gone. The nurse, Jessica, whispers, her voice hollow with defeat. We're losing him. Another shouts, a panicked echo. Alan's eyes lock back onto the cobra tattoo. The smirk from the courtroom flashes in his mind. He sees the monster, free, laughing. His hand, holding the scalpel, is steady now. His knuckles are white. He could stop. He could let him die. He could call it time of death. ... Bull. Quotes. It would be so easy. It would be justice. Jessica's voice cracks, pulling him back from the edge. Please. Alan looks at her terrified face. He looks at the cobra. He looks at the judge's gavel. A new, cold clarity cuts through the rage. Death is too quick. Death is an escape. This man doesn't deserve an easy escape. He deserves a cell. Peders. Alan's voice is a low growl, unrecognizable. But doctor, we tried. ... Now. Charge 2-360. He snatches the paddles, pressing them to the man's chest, right over the tattoo. Clear. The body jumps. The monitor flickers. A single, weak blip. I have a rhythm, the anesthesiologist shouts, shocked. Synestak. He's back, Alan says, his voice void of all emotion. But he's still bleeding out. I'm going in. The nurse looks at him, confused by his cold, sudden resolve. Alan's hand is perfectly steady. The tremor is gone. He makes the first incision. He is no longer a man. He is a machine built for one purpose. His hands move with blinding, terrifying speed. Clamp, suture, suction. He is a master at his craft. A god in this sterile room. But he is not fighting for the man's life. He is fighting for his imprisonment. He needs this man alive. He needs him to face the justice he was denied. More suction. I can't see the bleed. He delves deeper near the ravaged aorta. His fingers probe the dark, wet cavity. He feels something hard, not bone, metallic, forceps. Jessica slaps the tool into his hand. He navigates the tissue. His fingers close around the object. He pulls it out slowly, carefully. It drops onto the metal tray with a heavy, final clink. The entire team stares at it. It's not a recent bullet. It's old, deformed, rusted. A bullet fragment encrusted in scar tissue. Alan stares at the fragment. His blood turns to ice. He knows this fragment. He saw its twin in a sterile evidence bag, the police report. One bullet recovered, the second ... fragmented. This ... This is the bullet, the proof, the undeniable physical proof. A new energy surges through him, a cold, electric purpose. He looks at the dying man on the table. He can't let him die. Not now. Vitals. He snaps. Dropping again. Doctor, he can't take much more. He will take it, Alan says. Give me 10-0 silt suture. I'm repairing the aorta. He works with a precision that is almost supernatural. He is an artist of vengeance. Every stitch is a nail in the killer's coffin. Every clamp is another bar on his cell. He saves the man. He meticulously repairs every bit of damage. He wills the heart to keep beating. He refuses to let this monster escape him again. The surgery is a success, a technical masterpiece born from pure, cold hatred. Hours later, the recovery room. The VIP is awake. The monitor speaks softly. He looks arrogant, even in a hospital gown. So, he croaks. The famous Dr. Alan Cade. You saved me. Alan stands in the doorway, his face a calm mask. The surgery was complicated, Alan says, his voice flat. Of course it was, but you're the best. I pay for the best. The VIP smiles. That same arrogant smirk from the courtroom. It's a shame about you. What was it? A daughter? Alan takes a step into the room. Yes, Alan says. Her name was Emily. Tragic. The VIP says, bored. Well, send me your bill. doctor. Alan walks to the bedside table. He places a small, clear, plastic bag on it. Inside, the rusted bullet fragment rests on white gauze. "We found this during the surgery," Alan says. The VIP's smirk wavers. His eyes narrow. "Lodged near your heart, an old wound. A hunting accident," the VIP says, too quickly. "No," Alan says, his voice a whisper of steel. "The ballistics will match the bullet that killed my daughter." The color drains from the VIP's face. The mask of arrogance shatters. He sees the truth in Alan's cold, dead eyes. "You, ... Yuken singuk, taitoto tokots." "I saved your life," Alan says, leaning in close. "I fought for every second. I stitched you back together. I didn't do it to save you. I did it so I could be the one to watch you rot." The VIP's eyes dart to the door. Looking for his lawyers. "They're not coming," Alan says. The door to the recovery room swings open. 2 uniformed police detectives step inside. They look at the VIP. They look at the evidence bag on the table. One detective looks at Alan with a nod of profound respect. "Dr. Cade," the detective says, "we'll take it from here." The VIP opens his mouth to speak, to threaten, to bribe, but no sound comes out. He is just a man in a bed tethered to a machine, a killer finally brought down, not by a gun, but by a scalpel, a memory, and a father's promise. Alan turns and walks out of the room. He doesn't look back. In the hallway, he leans against the wall. He closes his eyes. For the first time in 3 years, he breathes. Justice has been served.